All right, our next clay project is texture tiles. And this is the intro. This is where I'm going to kind of go over everything about it, and then we'll get into our sketch. So what is texture? It is the feel, appearance, or consistency of a surface. Texture is repeating, not singular. Remember, everything has texture. Project overview. You will be creating a texture tile that has 3 additive textures and 1 subtractive texture minimum. Your tile will be completed to a professional finish form. Additive texture simply means to add other pieces of clay to your piece. This is the main focus of our project. So here we have examples of squares, coil logs, scales, rolls, grass, spheres. Yes, there is more. Absolutely. Subtractive texture involves actually removing clay from the surface to make patterns and designs, much like you did in elementary school. This will be used as accents on your piece. So you can see here there's divots from where clay was removed. Here's some examples of additive texture tiles. The rubric for this overall project is formative grades for your project sketch and studio habits. Studio habits are, by the way, how we clean up, how we handle things. A summative grade for your clay tile with 3 different additive textures, minimum, 1 subtractive texture. Yes, you can have more than 1. Finish to a professional quality, and again, studio habits. How you clean up after yourself is very important when you're doing clay. Texture tile sketch. In your sketchbook, draw a 4 by 4 inch or a 4 by 6 inch quadrilateral. Think of ways you can divide up your space, arcs, geometric shapes. Think about movement. Can I make an alternate shape? Yes. Things like circle or even a block letter, like those examples we saw, are okay. You just need to use the majority of the space. Draw in your texture. You can also label it to the side, and you're going to submit this via Schoology. We are not making cute little pictures here, guys. So here is Miss Taylor going over how to make your sketch and what you need to consider.
Now, ceramic clay is what's used to make your nice dishes at home. Your heavy plates, the ones that are like glass, those were once clay. But after somebody made them into plates and bowls and coffee mugs and stuff, they were fired in a kiln. All of these examples you can see have some really awesome texture added on top of the surface. That is what we need to see from you. So we're going to practice adding textures to the surface of clay, and that's what this project is going to be all about, is how well you can add textures. Today, we're going to start drawing out your rough draft design for what you're going to make with the clay. Here's what we're going to do. Texture tiles. You have seen these in some of my other videos. So these are all texture tiles. What I want to talk about today with texture, though, is that there's 2 kinds of texture. There's additive texture, and there's also subtractive texture. Now, adding and subtracting, you guys should know all about what that means. When we're talking about textures that are added, that means that they have been stuck onto the surface of the clay so that they stick up off of the surface. And so when we're talking about added textures and subtractive textures, what I mean there is that the pieces that have been attached onto the surface have been added up onto the surface, and where you scratch into the clay, that is where it's subtractive. We want to see more additive. Subtractive is what you might have done in elementary school, where you took your clay and then you drew lines into it. Yeah. We all did that. Now we're moving on and we're adding textures. So you are making a texture tile. It will probably be bigger than these, though. These are 2 inches by 2 inches. And you are going to start designing your tile, your square that's going to have textures on it. So what I'm doing now is I'm tracing this paper that I made. All right, here's going to be my rough draft. And so come up with an interesting design that you are going to fill with cool textures. We're drawing it onto a piece of paper. Remember, we want to see additive textures, okay? Plus, additive. We need to see additive textures. We need to see at least three different additive textures. So on this example that I have, I made these additive textures, which were all little skinny pieces that I overlapped onto each other. I made these additive textures, which was like a long skinny cylinder I rolled out, and then I cut it into pieces and I attached it. And then I made these additive textures, which each one was like a tiny jelly bean that I would squish on there and overlapped them. And this was the design that I came up with, was these swooshing kind of lines for these spaces. Now you can see that in here I have poked a tool down into the surface to make some subtractive textures. If you want to put some subtractive textures into yours, you definitely can. This student put some subtractive textures onto each of their additive textures, which is also okay. Now everybody needs to start working on your rough draft sketch. That is this right here. So you're drawing out your design and show me 3 added texture areas at least. And so tomorrow I'm going to show you some examples of some different textures that you can make with clay, and you might really like some of those.